Hi guys, it's me Julia. I just filmed a haul video, so now I've got lipstick on my hand, but I'm in my living room, and of course, do you think I brought down my, like a wipe or something that I can clean my hand off with? No, but that's okay. I'm not gonna get all bent out of shape about it. Okay, so from my last video, favorites, I kind of mentioned a little bit about the fact that I've been dealing with some health issues, and everyone who commented said that they would like to share my story, and a lot of people commented, you know, that they've had similar experiences. And as I said in that video, I find there's so many people these days dealing with anxiety or depression or some sort of like combination of the two. This is going to be a long video, and I might end up actually having to cut it up, but we'll see what happens. So as I said, everybody seems to be dealing with some sort of anxiety or depression. It seems to be the buzzword as well. I just feel like, I don't know, we also like to not label ourselves, but everybody likes to have a diagnosis. Everybody likes to be able to say, ah, yes, that's the reason why I feel like this, is because now I can say I have anxiety disorder or I have depression or whatever. And I find the more that I talk about stuff, the more I realize that other people are dealing with the same thing. So if we can start a conversation, I think that's really good. And even just getting on here and talking, if somebody else goes, oh, I'm going through the same thing, I didn't realize that's what I was suffering from. So first I'm going to start off with a little bit of history about my depression and my anxiety, because part of me was feeling like I should just get over myself. Everybody these days has anxiety. Everybody's stressed. Everybody seems depressed. Everybody suffers from depression. We live like in a heightened society where everything's urgent. We just, you know, like we have so much access to so much stuff. And I feel like that kind of feeling of keeping up with the Joneses is really huge. Like you feel like, as a woman anyway, I feel like if I don't have a CEO level job and kids in Juilliard and I'm Martha Stewart on the weekend, then I failed somehow as a woman. So we've all got that kind of pressure on. So like the whole time I've been dealing with this, I've also been saying to myself, just get over yourself, woman. I mean, everybody has that. Like, why are you so special? But historically, I should have, you know, clicked into the fact that I have mental health issues in my family. My mother was clinical, diagnosed, psychotic. Like, she was crazy. I was able to, like, when you're a kid and going through it, you don't realize that that's kind of what's happening, that your mother was crazy. But I also had a stepfather who kind of was in denial about it. Like it was always my fault. Like every time my mother would like push me down the stairs or pull my hair out or throw all my clothes out on the lawn when I was 9 years old, it was me provoking her. So I grew up with that kind of mentality that it's my fault. So everything's my fault. It's nothing about anybody else or anything else. Nothing's happening to me. I've done something, you know, to set that off. So I grew up in that environment, and there was, you know, other things that kind of went on. Like when I was 9 years old, my mother was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. So that kind of 9 is where my childhood ended. And 9 is also biologically, I think it's psychologically, 9 is like that crucial time where you start to build lasting memories. Like your brain has developed to the point where like these things live and they like shape who you are. So a lot of people, if you go back, like if you've had a traumatic experience in your life that, you know, that you want to go back to, a lot of times it happens at around that age, because that's the age when we can like, we start forming like our adult self. Kind of forced to grow up at 9 years old and spend the rest of my life kind of looking after my mom, looking after my stepdad, and just kind of being the third-rate citizen in the family. So that was traumatic and difficult. But you know, we thought, well, she's on medication, so you know she's fine. And you know what, Julia, you should just shut up and deal with it, because lots of people deal with much worse stuff and all this. So you shouldn't be like, I never gave myself permission to say, hey, you know what, I got shit going on too. So that's like the background. My parents got divorced when I was 2. It was, I assume, kind of a very bitter divorce. I don't really know what happened. Nobody's really told me exactly what happened, and whenever you talk to someone in a case like that, you kind of get the bias of their side. But you know, I can kind of believe that my mother just decided one day that she didn't want to be married to my father anymore, and she took me and she married another man. She wasn't seeing him before they got divorced, but they kind of took me, and then like we moved across the country, and I never really saw my father much after that. And back then there wasn't really this push for like joint custody or anything. So, you know, if you wanted joint custody, you kind of had to fight for it. And the judges basically just gave, you know, custody to the mothers right away, unless there was kind of extenuating circumstances. And at that time, my father didn't realize like how ill my mother was. And it just kind of got worse after we moved. And so I kind of grew up feeling like my father didn't want me, just because I didn't know if he, you know, like at the time I didn't know that like he was coming to the house and my mother wouldn't let him in, or, you know, I was also told like he just didn't want to fight with my mother, and he didn't want to make like a big trauma for me. But which is nice, but when you grow up and like if you don't know that history, all you know is that your dad wasn't there, and you know, like there was never any push to have you around, so you kind of feel like they didn't want you around. So that kind of led to some built up anxiety and stuff like that as I got older. So the year that my husband and I got married, as I said, I like had my first panic attack. And like at the time it was like, oh, I must be worried about the wedding or whatever. And I kind of for 20 years periodically would have panic attacks. Like, so progressively over the last 10 years, since my mother passed away, my panic attacks have led to anxiety. So I was like, you know, I'd start to feel kind of genuinely anxious a lot. And then it just kind of kept building and building and building to the point when I finally went and got help just before Christmas. I was in that kind of fight or flight state that you get where your heart's rushing and your breathing's going, and it's like, I gotta get out of this situation. You know, you feel it like when you've got a lot of deadlines that you're trying to meet. It's like, I just have to get this stuff done, and I've got to do this, and I got to finish that. So it's that feeling, but I was having it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it was just like all the time, right? And that's the only way that I can describe the feeling. It's like that feeling when you drop on a roller coaster, like right when gravity starts to take over, and there's that moment where you're hanging and and everything comes up in here, and there's that feeling. That's how I felt 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like it got to that point where it was just, that was always, you know, like my heart was racing all the time, my metabolism was speeding, yet I never lost any weight. It was a really awful feeling. And the worst part was it made me so tired. Like I was just exhausted all the time. And I mean, there's so many things that contribute to us feeling tired, but I was exhausted, like bone crushing. I could fall asleep standing up, exhausted feeling. So I was trying to figure out why I was so tired, and I was like having medical tests done, and like, oh, I must be anemic, there must be a problem with my thyroid, I don't know what it is. But I wouldn't deal with like the fact that you know, I had anxiety. So what was happening was I started, when did it start? So really 4 years ago I started to think, okay, I can't, you know, I have to do something. And it's like, you just get to the point where it's like, I hate hating myself all the time, where it's like, why are you crazy all the time? Why are you having anxiety all the time? Why are you so stressed out all the time? Why are you so angry all the time? Why are you so irritable and this and that? And why can't you be happy? And that was the big thing, is it was just like at the point where I couldn't feel happy. It's like just very slowly a big heavy blanket kind of weighs you down. And I mean, at first you can, like, it's a light blanket and you can kind of throw it off, and like every once in a while there's a blanket on top of you and you can toss it off. But then another blanket comes on, and another blanket, and then they put a feather duvet on you, and then pretty soon you can't lift it up. So you just kind of, if you can imagine yourself being squished with like 25 layers of blankets and duvets, it's like you can't move under that. So you just kind of lie there. So that's the state that I've found myself in for like the last, I'm gonna say 2 years. So let's go back, sorry, to 4 years. So 4 years ago, I decided to start working on myself. And it started with confronting someone that had abused me when I was a child. And it was, again, I was at the point where it was like, I felt bad all the time about what had happened to me when I was 9, and then when I was a teenager, even up into my 20s. Like, I felt bad about everything that had kind of happened to me in this kind of like systematic abuse that I was going through. And it was not like that I felt like it was my fault. Like, I knew it wasn't my fault, but I carried it, and I felt ashamed about it, and I felt bad about it. And it was like, not that I thought it was my fault, but it made me feel like less of a person. So 4 years ago, when I turned 40, I just thought to myself, I don't need to carry this anymore. Like, these are not my bags to carry. It belongs to the person that abused me and that made me feel this way. Like, it's not my fault. And even though I knew it wasn't my fault, it was like, I still felt like I had to carry it. I had to carry the shame of it. And it's like, no, I'm not carrying that shame anymore. Like, if somebody hurts you, it's not your fault. And it shouldn't be your bag to carry. You shouldn't be walking through the airport with a suitcase with a broken handle and like struggling with your backpack. That's not you, that's them, okay? So I confronted the person who had a position of control in my life, and I was just like, you don't have that anymore. I can't not have you in my life, but if you want to be in my life, like, this is what has to happen. And hi, here's your fucking suitcase to carry. Pardon my language. I'm not carrying it for you anymore. This is your shame. This is your problem. It's not mine. So that released this whole burden off me. And I went through this period where I thought, like, okay, that's the magic moment, and suddenly I'll be all better. And it didn't really work that way. It's not like I suddenly got better. As soon as I did that and I let that go, all of the emotion that I had been kind of holding back for, the years that I'd been living with that shame kind of came to the surface. It's like when you're working really hard and you take a vacation, like the first day of vacation, a lot of people get sick, and it's just because your body is allowed to. So everything kind of came out at once. And I had to take some time off work to just kind of deal with it and, get myself back together. And I started seeing a therapist. So 4 years ago, I started undergoing cognitive behavior therapy, which is, a lot of it's like being mindful and changing the way you think. And, it's a lot of this stuff. And I started exploring like meditation and yoga and like going for walks, and everybody talks about the magical cure-all that exercise is. So, you start exercising, and yes, exercise does make you feel better, but like, if you're dealing with like a mental health issue, thinking that you're going to cure it by going for a run, no, you can cure stress for sure. Like nobody's business. If you're sitting at work and you're stressed out and people are getting you angry and everything, just, leave your desk and go for a walk on the treadmill, go for a walk around the block, get some fresh air, that will go. But if you've got like deep-rooted mental illness problems, then that's not going to change just because you exercise. So I got into this cycle over the last 4 years where it was like I was doing all the stuff that I thought I should be doing. Like, I knew what I should be doing. I'd read the books. Like, I knew all this stuff and wrote a letter to my 9-year-old self and did this and did that. And it was like, I know all this, but it's not helping. Like, I'm not getting better. Like, I still feel like I'm lying underneath all those blankets. And then it was getting worse. Like, more blankets were being put on top of me, and the fog in my brain was getting heavier, and I was getting more and more tired all the time. So that made me feel even worse, because I was like, why aren't I getting better? I should be getting better. So I just started trying all this kind of stuff, and then got to the point where I gave up for a couple of years, where I was like, okay, I guess this is who I am, and I guess I'm just going to be miserable forever, and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing. Nothing's working. And then that kind of makes you feel worse. So then I got my new job last May, as you guys remember. That's about the time that I disappeared off of YouTube. And I mean, I love it. I love my job. I love the people that I work with, and I'm in a really great department, and I like the kind of work that I'm being able to do, but it's probably the most stressful department in the building that I work in. And there's just, because we do work for the whole agency, so it's just like, it's a lot of chaos, and we have to, like, you're constantly running and getting stuff done. So it was very, very, very stressful. And I just felt that anxiety kind of building, and it was, I got to the point where I didn't want to do anything anymore. It was like, I didn't care about, I had to give myself pep talks in the parking lot. You know, I'm crying at my desk. Colleagues and I are like, we're having like nervous breakdowns every day. And it was getting really, really bad. So, I got to the point like November, December of 2016 where I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. Like, I feel broken and I need to be fixed. And 4 years ago, when I first started like doing cognitive behavior therapy, I thought, my therapist asked if I wanted to take medication, because there's, you know, antidepressants. And I had known people that had taken antidepressants before, and I kind of felt like it flatlined them. And there was a time when I was a teenager when I took St. John's wort, which is supposed to be like this natural herbal antidepressant, and it really just leveled me out. And because, you know, like, I don't like the highs and the lows when you're happy, you're sad, you're happy, you're sad. But like, yeah, I didn't feel the crushing depression, but I couldn't get to those highs either. And I didn't like that. I didn't feel like feeling flatlined. So I said 4 years ago no to medication. And I said, I think I can cure myself with walking outside and smelling the breeze and, you know, doing yoga and all this other stuff. And, you know, which is great, does help with stress relief, but did nothing to help with, like, take any of the blankets off me that I was lying under. So I think it was like November or December, my husband, you know, was going to go and have a physical. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to come with you to meet our new doctor, because our old family doctor had left and a new doctor took over her practice. And the new doctor specializes in female health. So I said, okay, well, I'll come and I'll meet this doctor. And I don't know, I want to talk to somebody. Like, I need her to fix me. And it's like, I like putting myself in other people's hands and just say, please, like, all I ever want is somebody to look after me, because I guess it's because I spent my whole life looking after other people. It's kind of hard for me to look after myself that way, where it's like, I always know exactly what everybody else needs to do, but I have trouble with myself. So I started seeing this new doctor, who very quickly diagnosed me with depression. And it's just like the one thing that was what's the word that I'm looking for? Not the kicker, but the one defining clue for her was the fact that, like, I talked about, like, I know everything that I should be doing, but I lack the ability to flip the switch, like to turn it on, right? So it's like you lack the motivation, and it's like you just feel like nothing's gonna work. Like, I know everything that I should do, why can't I just do it? And like that self-sabotage and just like the anxiety and everything. So she diagnosed me with depression, and she, you know, said, would you like to take medication? And I said, I'm at the point. So this was December 16th, 2016. I said, yeah, I'm ready to take some medication. That's the back history of how I got to the point where I was able to sit in that doctor's office and say, yeah, I need you to fix me. And she said, would you like to take medication? And I said, sure. And that was like the start to my recovery. So I'm going to end that history there. And in my next video, I'm going to talk about the medication that I'm on and kind of like go over what happened when I started taking it. Okay, so keep watching. We'll see you soon. Bye.